But I did say it right, right? Oh, right. We're live, are we? Live on Facebook. Good afternoon, everybody. It's afternoon as of 16 minutes ago. I am Dr. Jeremy Chapman. You are watching Divergent Minds broadcast here. I was going to say live from SSM Treffert Studios, SSM Health Treffert Studios in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin. It is a pleasure to be here. I'm joined by the one and only Tina. I mean, she goes by one name. She's like Madonna. She's just Tina. And we're going to get to our topic in a second, but we go live every week, Wednesdays, 12:15 to 12:45 Central Time. Usually, I'm joined by the esteemed Dr. Ashvin Sood. He's off right now, so it's going to be the two of us, and we're going to be talking here. If you are watching this, you can feel free to type in questions and comments in the chat below the broadcast here on Facebook. In fact, even if you see this afterwards, you can pitch in with thoughts, ideas, comments, because we'll be talking about a topic that people might have insights on. And without further ado, our topic for this week is two parts. One is kind of gifted kids and how to best guide them. And the second part of it that's related is when parents have different kids of different abilities in different areas, how to avoid comparing them and how to navigate that if you have one child who is significantly different either in their cognitive ability or maybe in their behaviors or anything like that. What are some guidance for parents to, make sure everybody's feeling good and feeling empowered and engaged? So I will send it over to Tina right now. And by the way, she's our medical assistant here at Treffert Studios and does a whole bunch of stuff to keep us running, our clinic running. But one of the things that she does is she allows me to pull her into our live broadcast with 5 minutes notice and is chill enough about that. As we were talking about possible topics, this came up, and I'll let you just kind of give us the basics of why I wanted to discuss this topic with you. So take it away.
Yeah, so I actually have two sons. One is, I want to say gifted, advanced way,
Yeah.
and the other is more special needs.
Yes.
If you want to say. So there is never a comparison between the two because one is advanced academically and the other one is slightly behind.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's an interesting situation to have.
Yes.
One of the things that we were talking about before we went live here is that, first of all, the term special needs. I feel like growing up, special needs was always associated with someone who's struggling, who's behind grade level, perhaps, who might have some other challenges, either behaviorally or language or social challenges. And I think more recently, there's been some attention, but not enough given to the fact that special needs might also be for someone who's ahead of grade level. And they also have certain needs that should be met by the school system to keep them or to allow them to reach their full potential as well.
Right.
You have kids who, you hear about kids getting pulled out or maybe they get extra assignments or work. What in your experience at school has been done to support or promote the full success of your kid who is ahead of grade level?
Yeah, so he has been given extra homework that's more challenging. He has actually asked his teachers for that extra work.
Sure.
He has tutored kiddos in his class. He has actually taught his class when he was in third grade how to do long division, like the way that we were taught when we were younger, not the new math that they teach now.
Which I have no idea what that is, but there's new ways, I'm guessing, to do it.
Yeah.
How did he learn how did he learn this? How did he learn the old way of doing long division?
He figured that out on his own. I am not exactly sure how he did it, but he just did.
Did his research.
Yeah.
So his teacher allowed him to almost play the role of assistant teacher in a certain way, right? I mean, how did that come about that he found himself teaching his classmates?
Yeah. One day his teacher just told me, he's like, yeah, I let Ryder teach math class and he taught the kids to do this long division. And they caught on. And
so he did a better job teaching it than the teacher? or maybe
Well, I
met
mean, I
them in a
wouldn't,
different
I
way?
wouldn't want to say that, but
Different. He did a different
different.
job.
Yeah.
He was able to speak it to his classmates from the perspective of someone his age. How old was he at the time? 8?
Yes, you would have been in third grade.
So you have this 8-year-old in there who is empowered to
Mhm.
teach, and he enjoyed teaching his classmates about that.
Yes.
I wonder what the parents would have thought if he knew that one of the classmates was teaching them, but
Right.
maybe they just already knew that about him. So did that serve him, do you feel like, in his development and growth to play the role of teacher?
I don't know if I would necessarily say that. He just kind of goes about like his academic advance, just like it's nothing
It's normal.
different. Yeah.
Would he, I mean, how much is he aware? Obviously he knows that he can understand things and comprehend things that maybe his same age classmates can't. Would he describe himself as like, ahead or gifted or super, like how would he characterize his own brain?
That's a tough question to answer actually, because he doesn't like come off and be like, "Oh, I'm smart" or
Right,
anything
I've
like
met
that.
him. It's not his personality.
Yeah, he just kind of does his own thing, and
It's all he's ever known,
yeah.
that experience of the world.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, there's people, we've talked to other people who of course keep their kids home to homeschool them, which allows them to go completely self-paced and then
Right.
follow their own kind of interests at a certain point in time. And so that's one solution, I guess, to this challenge. If you feel like the school is not providing or not able to provide enough additional enrichment for a child, maybe you just take them and give them their own kind of curriculum. Did you ever think about doing something like that? I mean, it's hard. You have to be
Homeschooling
available.
would be difficult, especially when, if you have two working parents in the home.
Yeah.
It would benefit, I feel, because it would be like at your own pace. They can work ahead if they want.
Right.
I believe that a lot of homeschooled kiddos do finish school early versus going to public or private school.
Okay. They're learning the material a little bit more quickly, and maybe it's tailored directly to them. So if they get concept number 3, 4, 5, they don't have to spend any extra time on that. They just move on to the next concept, which makes sense. I mean, of course, at the Treffert Center, which is, part of our whole, I guess, suite of offerings here in Fond du Lac, at the Treffert Center, we hear from exceptional people all over the world. People who may, whose parents have discovered that they have an amazing musical talent or artistic talent or math or memory or hyperlexia, which is a very early reading. And they send them to us and they come with questions. What can we do? How can we support our child? How can we make this part of their future success, for example? And one of the things that we're always encouraging them is, you want to make sure they have some contact with their same age peers, whether it's in school or outside of school. Their social development is independent oftentimes of their intellectual development, right? So when you think of your son who is intellectually ahead of his age, socially with his interests, for example, whether it's toys or anything else, like, is he socially similar to his same age peers?
I would say he's more mature.
Yeah.
Socially, he's very advanced as well. It's
emotionally
like talking
too. Yeah.
Emotionally too. Yeah. I sometimes when I'm having a conversation with him, it's like talking to another adult. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, and that's probably not the kind of thing that he's even that much aware of, because it's just what his own experience of the world. And then in your particular case, it's also, I guess, influenced by the fact that he has a brother who's older than him.
Yeah.
But he serves as a kind of a mentor or teacher sometimes, or help guide, I think, for him as well.
Right.
There's obviously many households in which there's just one child who might be advanced or gifted, or one child who has those things, but another child who is more kind of mainstream or neurotypical.
Right.
So what has that been like in your household, having the two kind of different ends of the spectrum? And they're, by the way, they're both amazing, wonderful kids who I have met. So that their personalities has nothing to do with what we're talking about. Right.
Right. Yeah. So, I feel that, there's times where my younger son tries to play like I don't want to so much say like nurse parent role with his brother, but he likes to help out and he likes to like know what's going on and making sure he's okay all the time.
Right.
But they are completely opposite in a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
With my older son, he is 14 and his mentality levels about, I would say, second or third grade.
Right.
So he is socially, academically behind.
Right.
Where the younger one is advanced, almost like they have like a flipped role, if you want to say. And it's nothing bad,
It's not anything they did either. It's
no.
not. It's just the brain that they happened to have. Right. Some people have bigger feet or smaller feet. Some people have bigger, cortex, and some people have differently developed cortex. So it's just what was handed to them, more or less.
Right.
And I think in your case, actually what I'm piecing together here is that kind of having that parenting-ish role to his brother may be the reason why he's emotionally ahead of his age. And then that's almost separate from his intellectual ahead of his, because there's also kids who I work with where they're the older sibling of somebody who may have more special needs for a variety of reasons. And so they have to take part in being kind of a pseudo parent. And that puts them emotionally ahead of their age, even if they don't have any intellectual differences.
Right.
So in your case, your younger son has two different factors that are making him ahead in two different departments, more or less. Okay. So shifting slight gears here. And by the way, again, if you're watching, we are Divergent Minds. We're coming at you live from SSM Health Treffert Studios. We're actually halfway through our 30-minute broadcast. Awesome job so far. If you have questions, comments, we'd love to hear from you. We do have our little chat window open so we can see folks. And we're going to wrap up in about 10, 15 minutes here. We're talking about when there's different performance levels of kids within the same household. So far, we've been talking about intellectual, academic differences. One might be a couple grades ahead, one might be a couple grades behind, or even just on track, and emotional as well. So now there's also just behavioral and emotional differences between kids, having nothing to do with academics.
Right.
And we have many households where it's very tempting for the parents to think of one of their kids as, quote unquote, the problem child. Maybe that kid has had more outbursts, maybe yelled at people or dysregulated a lot and, messed up their room. And they get more phone calls home from, school and teachers about this person. Maybe there's even been legal, police involvement in some cases. And then they have a different child who just doesn't seem to have those things happening. We've all seen it. I think as clinicians and as a child psychiatrist, I sometimes see that in my very office where I'll be meeting a family for the first time and the parent or guardian will say, this guy right here, he's our problem kid, right in front of the kid. And I feel bad when I see that. Sometimes the other sibling is present too, but of course the kids are hearing this and they're aware of it. And we see that outside of the clinic as well. What's your hot take on this? Maybe families or friends. I mean, you've already told us in your case, you don't view them, their like goodness of person any different.
No.
Is it ever tempting? I mean, what do you give for, because like, for instance, your one son, we were talking about this, you wake up, the person is self-driven, gets ready for school, is ready to get out the door, very independent. And let's be honest, takes up less of your attention or time or stress on those days. At the same time, your other child, again, doing no fault to himself, just simply consumes more of your time, attention, and energy as a parent. So how do you not let that affect your kind of feelings about him?
Like I look at it as more of, everyone has their daily routine. So, I wake up both of the kiddos at the same time and one is ready to go out the door before I'm even ready to leave the house. Like he's like, let's go to school. I'm ready.
Yeah.
And the other one, it's like get dressed, put your clothes on. You know what I mean? So it's more direction. He needs that constant direction, brush your teeth, do this, do that, those hygiene, the hygiene help.
Yeah.
So, but I never look at it as like one is more of a burden than the other.
Yes.
Than the other. Like that's where I think, it's really important to treat them equally.
Yes.
Even though, like, I still ask my youngest son, like, do you have your sweatshirt with you? Do you have a coat on? Like,
sure.
And it's just natural nature to ask, even though I already know that he is ready to
Probably
go.
does. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's just to keep that equal.
Right. And this is your routine that you've always had. They've grown up like this. I guess one difference is what I see is your son is not taking up more of your time because he's rebelling or acting out.
No,
it's not what it is. I have patients, of course, in my clinic where, they're 16 and they refuse to get out of bed, or they don't want to have to do chores around the house. And so it seems more volitional. It seems more like personal, like they're just deciding to be hard, and my other son or daughter doesn't do this. So that's one difference with you. I don't think you have that in your household. And again, though, when I see these families in my office, one thing I talk to them about a lot is like roles, family roles. And within every family, there's dynamics, and every member of the family has their perceived role in the family. Maybe the father views themselves as the main disciplinarian in the family, or maybe the mother does, and the father's more of the nice cop or something like that. And then the kids have their own ideas too. So I always use the analogy of a movie or a play where there's different characters who have different roles and serve different purposes. And that sometimes starts to be the case. And if you have a kid who starts to view themselves as the bad kid, because that's what they hear their parents saying, either in the clinic or maybe to their friends and family, like they'll just fulfill that role. They'll almost think that that's what they're supposed to do.
Right.
And it just keeps the cycle going. It's like if I suddenly made different decisions and was less rebellious or less oppositional or whatever, then it would be weird because the family's not used to that. It takes effort for everyone to step back and say, let's give space for this person to re-identify themselves. Let's be open to the possibility that this person is not inherently a bad individual or evil or anything like that. Maybe if we can empower them to view themselves as a productive member of the family, a cooperative member of the family, then they will start to view themselves that way and maybe even act differently. I do see a question coming in. Do you have any advice for parents that are not used to that? And if the person is hearing us and seeing us, I want to make sure I know what they're referring to when they say that. But we'll give them a chance to clarify their question for us so we can answer it correctly. But this is usually news to the parents, and I try to do it in a way that's not accusing the parents of being bad parents either. I don't want to say you guys have this all wrong. It's more like I as a clinician, I will usually, if I observe that happening, if I see that pattern, I will usually try and schedule a parent only visit or phone call so that I can pick it apart with them and not in front of their kid, and say stuff like, look, we have to empower your child to feel like they're a solid, equal member of the household. I don't want to have that whole conversation in front of the kid necessarily.
And I feel sometimes too, people like parents or guardians don't realize that they're doing that. So, bringing that to their attention might actually be helpful.
Right.
In the household.
Yeah. They just might have fallen into some kind of a pattern that's outside of their awareness.
Right.
And they might even say, wow, I didn't realize we were doing that unintentionally. And so it has to be brought to their attention. So maybe what this person was asking about advice for is, suppose you are a parent and you find yourselves in a situation where maybe you have two kids who behave differently or have different emotional makeup, and one of them is kind of viewed within the family as causing a lot of the stress in the family. what are some pieces of specific advice? So I have a couple of thoughts on this, and I'll invite you if you have any too. One of the major pieces of advice I have to say is to take it out of the person and view it independently as their behaviors or their brain or their emotional kind of regulation, and focus on those things instead of you are the problem, you are the cause of my stress. We can say your anxiety has caused a lot of, challenges for us, or, this is a family problem. This is a family thing for us to solve together. And maybe in our particular family, it tends to fall on, you, Johnny, but in fact, everybody's participating in this situation. So if Johnny is feeling distressed and his response to that is to throw something at the window and break it, we need to help parents not view it as Johnny's the problem here, but our way of managing his anxiety needs to improve. So he can realize that it's two separate things, maybe his anxiety and himself. And sometimes even personifying it. Some families even go so far as to name it, right? Like, here comes the anxiety monster. He's acting up. Let's calm him down. Let's defeat him together. So the child is part of the team, kind of making a solution against this external entity that's not, inherent to the child themselves. Right. So the clarification came in for those with children that are gifted or have special needs that aren't used to it, the child or parents. So do you have advice for parents of children who are gifted or have special needs and just kind of aren't used to that situation? So maybe we can phrase this like this. When was the point in your life when you first noticed your one child seemed to be really ahead, and how did you respond to that, and what was it like?
It was actually when he was really little. I want to say starting at the talking age, he would talk full sentences right off the bat. He didn't really start with one single words.
Wow.
And then once he got into 3K at school is when, it was brought to our attention by the teachers too, that he was super advanced.
Yeah.
My concern was with him though, I wanted him to stay within his social circle with his age group. So we didn't advance him in school because I wanted to make sure socially that he would be okay. Because I have seen in the past where kiddos are put ahead of grades and then they fall behind socially once they get into the middle school age.
Yeah, you have a 10-year-old in a class with 12 or 13-year-olds.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like a huge age gap, but at that point it is.
Yeah, for sure. Developmentally, different stages in their lives. So did the school give you any other guidance at the time? Like, here's what we think we should do for him academically? Did they say why don't you have him read more books at home or do more math? Did the school have much to say about that, or were you kind of trying to navigate that?
I would say I navigated a lot of that on our own. But the school did give him extra homework to do, more advanced work.
Was he upset about that, or did he like it?
No, he actually asked for it, so he wasn't upset about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
It kept him busy. And one thing that we didn't mention yet is that he also has some of his own challenges too, right? Yes. With rigidity in particular and need for kind of sameness. So tell us a couple examples of stuff that you see in him that are not maybe seen in his brother in terms of particularity.
So for an example, time, a lot of people round time up to that's for an example, 2 o'clock, 2:15, 2:30.
Yeah, right.
But if I would say oh, it's 2:30, he would come back and be like, no, it's 2:26. It's not 2:30. So very particular with numbers.
Sure.
Very particular with schedule. He likes his schedule. After school, he says I believe it's 26 minutes of downtime.
Wow.
That he needs quiet where nobody bothers him after school.
Yeah. And then after that, he's fine.
Yep. He just needs that downtime. And
so there's this overstimulation with social stuff too, is what you're saying too. That's a factor here.
Yeah. So he has to have that quiet himself, wind down time.
And you wonder what his brain is doing during that time, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he was on Prodigy at that time, and he like Prodigy is a an
Math.
online math
Yeah.
thing that the schools offer, but you
Yeah.
can buy like more advanced
Yeah, sure.
levels.
So that's what
Yeah.
he likes to do. But
Yeah.
it doesn't involve him having to interact live with other
With
folks
others,
during
right.
that time. So it's very
Yeah.
so you wonder, I'm always interested if there's dots to be connected here. If these things are all,
Mhm.
kind of related to one another. For example, his specificity with times.
Mhm.
He's very attuned to small differences between things. Is that also related to what might make him a good speller or good at mathematics, because he's attuned to slight differences? And if it says 27 plus 5 is 33, he would be much more aware, and it almost bother him to know it's actually 32. So it's, again, this discerning of small differences between things that could, the same thing that makes him very accurate with his academics also makes him a little bit distressed, in other areas of his life.
Yeah. A lot of things are particular with him.
Yeah. You mentioned clothes, or he has some tactile sensitivities, textures or stuff like that.
Yeah, so when he was little, he would wear multiple shirts to school. It's kind of a funny story. And he would have his teacher pick out what shirt he should wear that day. So he would wear like 3 layers of shirts.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So it wasn't just because he was cold, or
no, he just had his own way of doing things, and that's what he liked to do. And I just
so
you have to pick your battles at that point.
Yeah, as a mom. That's actually, counter to what I would think. And we only have a minute here left. Yeah. But, usually I would think you would say something like he had one t-shirt and he always wanted to wear it. Like that's what I hear more often. Or he'll only wear cotton with no, seams in it. I hear that a lot in my office too. They're very particular in that sense. But this was almost like the opposite. It's like he doesn't want to actually pick what he wears, and he wants the teacher to pick that for him. But that became a routine for him.
It did.
He needed the teacher to do that. What would happen if there was a sub who didn't want to do that, or if wasn't used to that kind of
he never
ritual?
He never came home with the 3 shirts. There was always like one shirt was on when we picked him up. So at some point throughout the day, he had decided what shirt to wear.
Interesting.
And that went on for 2 years. So that was 3K and 4K.
And that just kind of,
and then it just,
So that's the last thing I want to ask you about here as we look to wrap up in the next couple of minutes is, do some of those peculiarities, if we want to call them that, resolve on their own? Do you feel like the role of the parent is to help make those go away, or you have to take it case by case?
I didn't really stop him because that was just like what he wanted.
And it
wasn't anything like affecting our day. And it wasn't I felt like it wasn't a behavioral thing. So it wasn't anything like wrong in a sense, or like
evil intentions.
Yeah, there was no ill intent behind it. It was
doable to have.
Right.
He wasn't asking to take 20 shirts.
No.
Or something like that.
No.
Or all of his different pants and socks. At a certain point, you're like, okay, we got to do this differently here.
Right.
You kind of take it case by case.
Yeah.
This has been a really interesting conversation. I feel there's so much more to learn about both how to best serve children who are intellectually ahead of their peers, and also how to help parents navigate in a respectful way children of different, let's say, makeups, both emotionally, behaviorally, cognitively, everything. Even athletes, like, if both kids play softball, but one of them is really good and one of them is just good, you see that a lot too.
Yeah.
If you're seeing this afterwards, feel free to give us some comments, maybe some resources you might have or thoughts you might have on this if you are a parent. And otherwise, thank you so much for watching and tuning in. We're here live every Wednesday, coming at you from Treffert Studios. We have a rotating panel of amazing guests, such as the wonderful Tina right here. Thank you for coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me today.
And with such little notice too.
Right.
With that, we will go offline here and see you next week. Cheers. Awesome. I think we're offline. I don't know. I can never quite tell. We're recording. We'll wait till someone tells us to stop talking here. We're learning. So the recording will stop in the Zoom call, but I'm going to ask them when the actual,
like when it actually
Facebook
stops.